Hello guys, so now we shall be discussing about another parasite, right? That will be Fasciola hepatica, right? So this is another trematode, that is Fasciola hepatica. So we shall be focusing on another trematode, that will be Fasciola hepatica. Now by the name itself, what does it infer to you? That Fasciola hepatica, in the sense it mainly affects your liver, right? So the other name for this is sheep liver fluke. Sheep liver fluke. At the end of all the parasites, we shall be writing these names like sheep liver fluke, lung fluke. So all of them we shall be writing in a separate table and making it easy for you for your MCQs point of view. So Fasciola hepatica is also called as your sheep liver fluke. Okay. Now one very important thing you need to understand here is that in the previous lectures, we have talked about definitive host, the intermediate host and all, and also the infective form, right? So here also we shall be describing all of them. So the first thing we shall be going on with is the definitive host. The definitive host. Okay, so what is this? It will be the definitive host. After that we have got intermediate host, right? So we have discussed two intermediate hosts. So if you are not sure about this, watch my previous two lectures. One on Parasitology westermani, right? Another one is on Clonorchis. So in there I have discussed what is the definitive host and everything. So next, after definitive host, we have got the intermediate host. Now intermediate host are two. So when there are two intermediate hosts, one will be primary, one will be the secondary, right? Which comes first is the primary, the next one will be the secondary. So we have got a primary, intermediate host, we have got the secondary intermediate host, right? So we have got the primary intermediate host, we have got the secondary intermediate host, and finally what is the infective form? That is very important to know. What is the infective form? Okay, now let us make a differentiation of all of them. Right. So before discussing what is the definitive host, the first thing we have to discuss is what is a pathogen. The first pathogen which comes into your mind, as we have discussed in the first lecture, that would be Parasitology westermani, right? So that would be Parasitology westermani. So now tell me guys, what will be the definitive host? The definitive host is always human, right? The second pathogen which we have discussed was Clonorchis. And the third pathogen which we are discussing today is your Fasciola hepatica. Right? So in all these three, the definitive host will be human. But only one small change, that in Fasciola hepatica, along with the humans, there are also two definitive hosts. One, they are the cattle, right? One is the cow and the other one is the sheep. Okay, so one will be the cow and the other one will be the sheep. So keep this thing in mind as an extra point. Okay, it's very important. So one is the cow and the other one is the sheep. Okay, in case of Fasciola hepatica, that is why we called it as sheep liver fluke. I hope you remember it, right? Now when it comes to the intermediate host, the primary intermediate host, in the first, the primary intermediate host was snail, the second also it was snail, and even in the third, the primary intermediate host will be snail. When it comes to the secondary intermediate host, in the Parasitology westermani, the secondary intermediate host was the crab, right? Crab. And next we have got the fish, the freshwater fish. But here the secondary intermediate host will be a vegetation, right? A freshwater plant. It will be a fresh water plant. This is very important because which are common they are not going to ask you, but which are absolutely different they will ask you in the exams. Second intermediate host, crab, fish, freshwater plant. Okay, now when it comes to the intermediate form, again I'm telling you the intermediate form, right? The infective form, the infective form in all trematodes will be metacercarial larva, except in case of schistostoma. Okay, except that in all cases, in all trematodes, you have the common infective form, and that would be metacercaria. That would be what? Metacercaria larva. Okay, so keep this important thing in mind. Right? Right. So let us start with this thing now. Start with the life cycle. Okay. So we are mainly dealing with what? We are mainly dealing with human, cow, sheep, snail, and freshwater plant. Okay. Now let us draw the life cycle. Now when it comes to the life cycle, let me draw the picture first of all. So what did I tell you? What was the secondary intermediate host? The secondary intermediate host was, yeah, the freshwater plant, right? So firstly, let us draw the secondary intermediate host. Okay, so this would be your secondary intermediate host. So this would be your freshwater plant, let us say, right? And there is a lot of water around. So this is a freshwater plant. Okay, now coming to the human. Now when it comes to the human, important things to know, very very important. Let us keep it short, not this thick. Right, so when it comes to the human, all of you know that within the human we have got this intestine over here, right? So this is a esophagus, obviously this is the esophagus, and this is your stomach, and we have got the duodenum over here next to it, and we have got like this. Okay, now all of you know that you have got the liver on the right hand side. Liver is in the right hypochondrium, and all of you should also know that there are veins that are going like this, right? So there are veins. So all of these veins together they form a portal vein, and portal vein is draining where? Into the liver. And in the previous lecture I have told you about the biliary tract, right? So watch my previous lecture. I've little bit described about the biliary tract, but right now I'm just drawing a single tract like this which represents the biliary tract. Okay, now let us get into the topic. First thing, the infective form enters into the humans. Now where is this infective form located? The infective form, first of all, what is this infective form? I told you infective form is always metacercarial larva. So where is the infective form? The infective form is on this freshwater plant, right? So what is this? This is your fresh water plant. This is your freshwater plant. So the infective form is lying somewhere on the freshwater plant like this. Let us say these are the infective forms which are lying on the freshwater plant. And obviously these infective forms are called as metacercaria. These infective forms are called as metacercaria, and they are encysted. They are having a cyst on them, isn't it? These are called as metacercaria, and they are having a cyst on them. Now this metacercaria, whenever it gets into your mouth, obviously this metacercaria enters into your stomach. Now let me show you this. So there is a metacercaria over here, and this metacercaria is entering into your stomach. Okay, now this metacercaria, from the stomach it enters into your duodenum. Now what will happen in the duodenum usually, guys? In the duodenum there will be excistation. I mean the cyst removal happens. Okay, so now look here. So this is what is this? This is your cyst, right? I mean the metacercaria. Now metacercaria loses that cyst over it. Now when it loses the cyst, This is the metacercariae, naked metacercariae, because it has lost the cyst. Why? Because I told you in the duodenum excistation occurs. Excistation means removal of the cyst, right? Now this naked metacercarial larva, what will happen is that this larva will enter into the portal tract like this. Okay, it will enter into your portal tract or portal vein. Now from the portal vein, this will move all the way into your liver. Where is it moving? It is moving all the way into your liver. In the liver, what is going to happen? In the liver, what is going to happen? In the liver, what will happen is that this larva will turn or will develop into a worm that is called as adult worm. This larva is developing into an adult worm. Okay, so what is this? This is your adult worm. I told you adult worm is enough to release the eggs. There is no need of additional sexual partner to it. Okay, why? Because I told you that all the trematodes are hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodite means this adult worm itself is having both male and female sexual organs. Okay, so it is a hermaphrodite. I hope you understood, right? So this is an adult worm. Now this adult worm, what is going to happen to this adult worm is that this adult worm will enter into the biliary tract. Okay, so you can see the adult worm entering into the biliary tract. Now from I'll write all these things aside, right, in a minute. So from here, this adult worm, right now it enters all the way into your intestine like this. So this adult worm is descending down into the intestine. Now what will happen is that these adult worms release eggs. Okay, what are these adult worms gonna do? Look here. These adult worms are gonna release eggs, and these eggs are called as unembryonated eggs. What kind of eggs they are? See, you see there are group of eggs here, and these eggs are empty inside, isn't it? These eggs are empty inside because these are called as unembryonated eggs. These are called as unembryonated eggs. Now these unembryonated eggs will turn into embryonated eggs. The same thing which we have discussed in the previous life cycles, right? So these unembryonated eggs, these are your unembryonated eggs, right? So slowly they will develop an embryo inside. Okay, so these unembryonated eggs will turn to embryonated eggs. So they are turning to an embryonated egg. So there is an embryo inside. Okay, they are turning to what? Embryonated eggs. Clear? They are turning into embryonated eggs. Now from these embryonated eggs, what will hatch out? Miracidia will hatch out. Now from these embryonated eggs, what was going to hatch out? Miracidia. So this is your miracidia, which is going to be hatched out of this embryonated egg. So this is miracidia. So what is happening? Miracidia hatch out of these embryonated eggs. Now once miracidia will hatch out, it will enter into the primary intermediate host. So in this cycle of Fasciola hepatica, the primary intermediate host was snail. I told you before, right? So it is going to enter into your primary intermediate host. So let us say this is the snail like this, right? Right, so let us say this is the snail. Okay, what is this? It is a snail. Now this miracidia is going to enter into this snail. Look here, this is the miracidia that is entering into the snail. Within the snail, there are 3 stages I always tell you, right? What are those stages? MSRC. Remember this for all trematodes. What is M? M is miracidia. Okay, so let me write down here. What is M? M is miracidia. Miracidia will develop further into sporocyst. Sporocyst will further develop into rhedia, and rhedia will further develop into cercaria. Right? So that would be MSRC, because in all trematodes, I have already discussed this box, right? So in this box, what did we tell? We told you that in all the trematodes, the primary intermediate host is snail. So in all these snails, in all the life cycles, MRCS is common. Okay, MSRC is common in all of these three. Okay, so in all these three life cycles, when you look at Miracidia, the next three also should come to your mind, like sporocyst, rhedia, and cercaria. Now the important thing is cercaria. Now what will happen to this cercaria? How does the cercaria look? So this is how the cercaria looks. Okay, now what will happen is that this cercaria finally lands on this freshwater plant. Once it lands on the freshwater plant, surrounding this cercaria, a cyst will develop. Once cyst has developed around the cercaria, and that cercaria is called as metacercariae. So where is encystation happening? Encystation is happening in the secondary intermediate host. So right, so this would be your primary intermediate host, and this would be your secondary intermediate host. On the secondary intermediate host, encystation happens. What happens? Encystation happens. Right? So what is this? Cercaria. Right? Cercaria is developing a cyst around it, and that is called as encystation, and that happens in the freshwater plant. Okay? So this is the basic life cycle, guys. Okay? So you also told me that sheep and cow are also the definitive host. Yes. What will happen is that instead of entering into the humans, it can also enter into sheep, or it can also enter into cow. Okay, so even in the sheep and cow, the same thing happens, and finally the cycle, where does the cycle continue? In the sheep and the cow. Look here, the same thing happens, and finally the cycle continues like this. I mean, the sheep and the cow are gonna excrete unembryonated eggs, and from the unembryonated eggs, embryonated eggs gonna form, and the cycle is repeated. Okay, so this is all you need to know. Right? Now let us look at the life cycle that is given by CDC. And yeah, by the way, this is your Fasciola hepatica. This would be your Fasciola hepatica. Okay, let us look at the CDC life cycle. So this would be the CDC life cycle. Okay, now obviously all of you know the human and the cow and the sheep are the definitive hosts. Okay, so they are excreting what? They are excreting unembryonated eggs, and these unembryonated eggs, what will happen? They become embryonated. Once they become embryonated, from there what will hatch? Miracidia will hatch. These Miracidia, what will happen? They will penetrate into or enter into the intermediate host, that is the primary snail. Within the snail, what will happen? I told you MSRC, Miracidia converting into sporocyst, sporocyst to rhedia, and rhedia to cercaria. And this cercaria will develop a cyst around it, and that is called as metacercariae. Right? So this is the standard chart of life cycle that is given by the CDC, and this is worldwide accepted. Okay? So this is all you need to know regarding the Fasciola hepatica. Thank you so much for watching my lecture. Goodbye.